Hello everybody and welcome back once more to Anime Yay or Nay. I am TheOutbackAl.
I'm Chibi Noob.
I'm Envy Jitters.
I'm CheerandCosplay.
And I'm Kozi.
And we're back with the first of the year. Hell of a thing. How's everybody's year going so far? Or is it too soon to tell?
I mean, I now have 21 vacation days at work, so great!
Hey!
Yay!
Always good to hear.
I'm about to go on vacation, so great!
You're going on vacation. Nice. Well, we got a whole month of... Well, there was some debate on it. Is it Ghibli or is it Ghibli?
Ghibli.
Yeah, Studio Ghibbles this month. We watched a number of their movies over the years through this thing, and we never really had like we're gonna focus solely on them for a stretch of time, so we figured, you know what, there's been a couple more that we haven't taken a look at. We might as well do that for this month and see where things go. We might as well start with The Boy and the Heron, because that came out last month, end of the year, and we've had a bit of time to mull it over, I guess, so...
Yes.
Yeah. So, I normally start with, well, who hasn't seen this before? But no one had seen it before we just watched it in the theater, so... Yeah,
Before we talk about this movie, I do want to talk about the quote-unquote advertisement this movie had in Japan, because it was listed under the name How Do You Live? And literally, all the marketing for the movie was a teaser poster. That was it. No trailer, no official poster, no commercials, nothing. They literally just said, hey, here's a movie by Hayao Miyazaki and Studio Ghibli, go see it. And it worked.
Yeah,
it did well.
When you got a name like that, you can get away with that kind of shit.
So, because we had trailers here for, like, the West.
Yep.
Yes.
Was that just because they were like, hey, look at how stacked the voice acting cast is?
Pretty much, and also, I guess, to make it more aware of it for Western viewers, because I'm sure most Western anime watchers know about Hayao Miyazaki and Studio Ghibli, but they, you know, we still need, I guess, trailers for stuff in the West, but literally in Japan, and I think this was a decision by upper management of Ghibli, they literally basically had no marketing for the movie at all.
Yeah, I mean, they don't. That was just
a first. That was just a first. Like, yeah.
Yeah, Miyazaki over there is like Spielberg over here. You know who the fuck that is. So, you know, we don't have to, like, tell you too much. It's a Spielberg movie. It's a Miyazaki movie. Over here, though, there's, like, that's definitely not a name that, like, has as much clout. So, yeah, they probably... I do remember a lot of the advertising was mostly the voice cast in that, which tends to be any kind of marketing, even for, like, the animation stuff nowadays. I mean, half the animation trailers are like, hey, look at these 40 people that are in the movie as voice people. I'm like, have they ever done voice acting before? No? Oh, this is going to be interesting. Why is Chris Pratt Zelda? That doesn't make any sense.
Please don't jinx it.
Dude, it's already happened. He's already Link. So, it is what it is. But, you know, hey, honestly, I'd watch it if he was Princess Zelda. That would, because I know what kind of movie it would be, and it'd be very funny. But beyond that...
I can't tell if you're being sarcastic
or not. I'm not being sarcastic.
No.
Unless they changed it. Unless they changed it as of the time of this recording. But I don't know. We're not here to talk about that, though. We can cry later. There's always time to cry later. So, this movie came out, I think, generally speaking, a lot of people have said, oh, it's a masterpiece, it's this, it's that, it's that. So why don't we kind of get into it a little bit and see what everybody else thought about it. Plot-wise, it's pretty much, I don't want to call it an Alice in Wonderland kind of thing, but it is kind of, you know, normal world then going into a strange world that makes no sense kind of thing. Go ahead.
Portal fiction is more or less what that genre is called.
Yeah.
Is generally, at least in book form, what that is. But yeah.
Yeah, so we have Mahito, the main character whose mother dies in a hospital fire, and then he has to, years later, move out to the country with his dad and his new mom, who's also his mom's sister, so his aunt. Feels weird, but at the same time, you know, when you look at it enough, it's like, yeah, that's not weird, I guess. Okay.
No, it's weird.
It's weird in a way that's... It's kind of okay. Yes, your sibling will also technically be your cousin, but I mean,
there are way worse things that could happen.
Yeah, the scenario could be much worse.
Yeah.
I mean, it's basically the aunt was like, yeah, my older sister died, I'm going to comfort you. And then I guess one thing leads to another, I'm going to comfort you in another way.
Yeah, well, yeah. So he's got a... stepmom.
She wanted to be
pregnant.
Mahito's, like, replacement mother, because that's what she promised her sister.
If that's her main reason...
And that somehow led to her fucking the dad and getting pregnant.
Look, if that's her main reason, then it's weird. If it just sort of happened and she was, like, trying to be a guardian and then, like, one thing led to another, it could be fine. I'm not here to speculate about the relationship because it's not really gone into that much because the dad's barely a character. But
he's a great character.
He's fun.
Like, ethics aside.
Yeah, that was Christian Bale, which I guess this is a return to Ghibli because he was Howl before.
Yep.
That's kind of a weird way to think about it. But yeah, so they move out to the country to this place that's arguably haunted to some degree. There's been weird stuff going on with this tower over
his mother's
somewhere.
ancestral home.
Yeah. It's kind of I wouldn't know, is it like a castle kind of thing, or is it just kind of like a
manor, probably?
Okay. I'm not always familiar with like how Japan defines castles all the time, so yeah.
Because they're not even living inside of whatever the traditional part is. They're living in a Western-built house that's also on the property.
Yeah, probably because it's easier to maintain and stuff like that. I mean, I feel like there's probably like a lot of instances of that sort of thing, especially if it's like a smaller family.
Yeah.
But yeah.
Well, even then, around that time, Western construction was like starting to become way more common.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, I guess we should say that this movie, I guess it takes place shortly after World War II.
No, it's still during.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. The fire at the beginning of the movie, was that part of a bombing from the U.S.?
I think so.
Okay.
Yeah, I think it takes place in 43 or 44.
Yeah,
and then
so we're 2 years away from the end of the war.
And then a year, well, then they also say a year later, Mahito moves to and his father moved to the aunt's house. So.
Okay, yeah, because it's still 44, because the dad is involved with building...
planes.
Yeah, planes for the Japanese Army, Navy,
bombers.
what have you.
Yep.
Not bombers. I think he was making cockpits for the Zeros. So, if you want to connect it to The Wind Rises, you can, because those were that guy's planes.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, so the tower's haunted. There's a gray heron that keeps harassing this kid and is possibly some sort of demon. We're not sure. So the heron talks, and it's kind of leading up. I don't want to get into spoilers, but the heron leads him to the tower and leads him into this other world where a bunch of fantastical things are happening. I don't know how many people have seen this yet. Maybe we can have a section for spoilers specifically, but that's the plot minus spoilers in general. But anything that I've talked about at this point is in the first 20 minutes. Yeah. More or less. So
yeah, once they go to the tower and then shit happens with the heron, that's when it really goes batshit insane.
Yeah, before we go into any sort of section of spoilers, what were our initial thoughts about all of this? I guess we can get that out of the way. I guess
we can go in order.
You want to start with me?
You might as well.
Well, I was kind of disappointed, if I'm going to be honest. Like, I don't want to call this a bad movie, because it's not a bad movie. It's just kind of boring, unfortunately. I kind of get what he was going for with, like, this other world stuff, and, like, there's a lot of themes about change, moving on in your life, acceptance. I know everyone said this is, like, a semi-autobiographical thing for Miyazaki, and I can see that, but at the same time, it's still kind of boring through most of the movie, except for the very beginning, which I have to say is some of the best animation I've ever seen in my life. The hospital fire and everything going on there is some of the most, like, emotional and just visceral sequences of animation I've ever seen. And it was absolutely amazing. Like, when that section was over, I was like, holy shit, is the whole movie going to be like this? Because I'm going to pass out. And, he had those little quiet... He does a really great job of having, like, big moments of, like, action or something, like, extreme happening, and then, like, quiet moments where you're able to, like, sit with it and let it settle again before another one. So, like, I do tend to enjoy his pacing throughout most of his movies. But my problem was that, yeah, after you really get into the other world, I feel like the plot sort of nosedives a little bit. Maybe not nosedives. It's still interesting. It's just not as interesting, I guess, as maybe I was hoping. I don't know. I don't want to bash this movie because it doesn't feel like it should be bashed, but at the same time, It's very pretty. That's the number one thing we can say about any of these movies is that they are gorgeous. But yeah, it started to really lose me in the middle and at the end. But yeah, how about you guys?
I will say visually and sound-wise, this movie was great. Like, music's always good for a Miyazaki movie. Visuals, as always, as Al was saying, is always amazing. Unfortunately, I'm also gonna say that I was, like, disappointed, but less disappointed, but more just confused, because I think my whole thing is that normally when you're watching a Miyazaki film, the plot is there and you're watching the movie and the messaging all makes so much sense while you're watching it because the themes are very, very clear. However, with The Boy and the Heron, this movie was, it kind of meandered quite a bit and nothing was very, like, hey, this is what we're gonna talk about. And I don't know, I just sat there and I walked out of the movie just being like, this film has to mean a whole lot to him, because it probably makes a lot of sense to him, to Miyazaki, that it just doesn't make sense to, like, me or probably other people, mostly just because these aren't life experiences that we've had. But yeah, I'm just, and I hate to rag on it, but it's just like, I feel a more concise story could have been done in less time. I don't know. I feel like I'm not putting my thoughts together succinctly, but I feel like it could have been executed a bit better, and unfortunately, I guess, in comparison to his other films, I feel like it was lacking a bit.
So you guys know how much I love Studio Ghibli. Like, I literally went down, a couple years ago, and I watched every single film that I haven't seen through our anime club in college. So I sat down and watched all of their major theatrical or just official feature films. And I hate to say it, this is my second least favorite Ghibli film. And yeah, it's my least favorite theatrically released film. There was one film called Ocean Waves, which was a TV movie that was made by younger staff members at the time in the 90s. So I don't want to give that movie too much of a hard time, even though it's my least favorite. But as far as, major theatrically released Ghibli films, yeah, it's my least favorite. Like Chibs and Al said, the animation is, gorgeous. I mean, they're like one of the masters of 2D, hand-drawn 2D animation for a reason. The music was great. The voice cast, which I guess we can talk about later, the dubbed voice cast, because we saw this dubbed. It was also great. I mean, Robert Pattinson alone as the Heron, like, he's unrecognizable. Like, he's just, I didn't expect that vocal range from him. But yeah, I understand a little bit of the themes of the film now that I've mulled it over and I've read, articles about discussing it. But I remember watching it in the theaters. I was getting kind of confused at the plot at times. And it's not like I can't watch abstract themes or concepts in a film, but sometimes I just feel like there are certain sequences in the film where it just things happen. Like they just happen for no good reason, or they happen to just move the plot along. And I wasn't crazy about it. And I was sitting there watching the film. I'm thinking, okay, when is there going to get, I hate to say good, but like, when is it going to get to that magic that I've come to love from these films and Miyazaki? And I personally never felt it. And by the time the end credits rolled and the conflict was resolved, I just felt kind of like, that's it. That's how they end it. That's how they resolve it. Like, and the characters that you kind of build up at the beginning of the film, they just kind of resolve their conflicts rather quickly and unsatisfactory to me. So it's just kind of like, I was so excited to see the film because this is the first time I've seen a new Ghibli film in theaters. We saw, a re-release of Princess Mononoke, but like, this was a brand new special thing, and I just kind of left disappointed. So That's my long-winded spiel.
I'm trying to think of what else to say that hasn't been said. Like, it was fine. I didn't hate it. Kept me entertained for the most part. It was pretty to look at and everything. But, like, yeah, it was just confusing. I was sitting there the whole time like, is this supposed to be a metaphor for something? I can't quite figure out what.
To me, it gave major Tales from Earthsea vibes. Or Legends of Earthsea, whatever that was.
Tales of Earthsea.
Yeah. The one Hayao, like, disowned his own kid over. Like, I feel like he did the exact same thing with this movie. On its own, it had very good subplots, and there were so many of them, and I feel like if we would have chosen any one of them and actually followed them through to a conclusion, it would have worked really well. But as it was, and I get it, if it's supposed to be like a metaphor for his career, why we have just like all these semi-conflicting plot lines going on at the same time, all thrown together, because like his career has been very diverse, but none of them really reach a meaningful conclusion. Like, the actual climax and resolution of the film doesn't answer any of the questions that have come up throughout the film. And abstract can work when you are given the key to understand why that abstractness makes sense, which we were never given. There are laws that are put into place for the world that they're like, yes, these are the laws of the world, and they have to be abided by, but like they don't ever explain why those laws have to be there or what their purpose is. Like, with specifically the ant in the other world, in her connection to it specifically, there are so many questions I have from that point alone, and it almost seems like if they had cut her character entirely, it really wouldn't have impacted the film, even though she was supposed to be one of the driving forces of it. Or at least the plot moving forward. But, like, I think it was supposed to be an allegory for his career. It was supposed to be another allegory for death and your journey of grief and getting over it and change and all that. And it maybe could have benefited if it had been a bit longer. It might not have. But just in the form it was delivered, it wasn't very satisfying. Also, the plot resolution came on so quickly and finished so quickly. I don't remember if it was Yin or their girlfriend. One of them went to the bathroom and missed the entire climax within like 5 minutes.
Dang.
Yeah. Do we want to... I don't know where we want to cut off for spoilers, but here feels like a good enough area.
Yeah.
Yeah. So yeah, from this point on, whatever we're talking about will likely include spoilers. 3, 2, 1, you've been warned. Okay, so...
Spoiler.
Kozi, I kind of want to bring back what you said about the rules kind of element of that world. That I was mentioning Alice in Wonderland a little bit earlier. Mm-hmm. That's kind of part of the issue, I think, for me, because, like, if you have a plot that's like Alice in Wonderland, where everything's essentially meant to be, like, nonsense, you don't really have to explain everything because everything's crazy and it doesn't have an explanation, that can work fine. But this world's not that. You're right, it did have what felt like a lot of hard and fast rules that aren't explained to any degree as to why they're there or what the actual implications of them are, but they are there, and we have to abide by them, but we don't know them. So, in either case, the world doesn't make sense to us, but at least with the Alice in Wonderland, the point is that it doesn't make sense.
Even though it doesn't make sense to, like, reality, but it makes its own sense in its abstractness.
Yeah, but if it doesn't make sense to us, then it's not going to make sense anyway. And I think they want it to make sense, so it doesn't.
Yeah, no. I agree with you. Like, I'm just saying, like, Alice in Wonderland, like, even though it's, like, whimsy and it's not supposed to make sense, like, it makes enough sense.
Yeah.
that it's communicated to us and we can still understand the world.
Yeah. Like, I'm really reminded of, and I think I mentioned this to you guys when we watched it, I was kind of reminded of the Makoto Shinkai movie we watched earlier, the Children Who Chase Lost Voices, where they go to the underworld or whatever. And it's like, yeah, fantastical place, allegories and themes of death, loss, change in your life, all that kind of stuff, being able to move on from that sort of thing. Also, this world has a bunch of hard and fast rules that some are explained, some aren't. I feel like maybe that movie might have done it a little better with explaining a couple of things, but I kind of felt like I had the bit of the same sort of experience with that, where it was like, I feel like there's a much larger story about this world that's just not being told to me, and I'm more interested in that than what's going on. So,
yeah. Like I said, like, there are a ton of, like, segmenting plots, and each one on their own was very interesting, but we don't see any of it really all the way through. Like, the very first little world he gets stuck in, like, what actually are those little things that are supposedly being born back into the world? Why is the old lady turned young lady the one who has to take care of, like, how did that even happen?
Not explained.
Like the thing with this whole entire world, like, I feel like it's a time dilation. Like, all time is distorted in this world, and I don't think the lady herself became young. That was her in the past.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know if I would call it exactly time dilation. It seems more like a place that's beyond time as we perceive it.
Yeah.
So each of those doors was to a different, same location, different time period. And you could come and go as you please.
And it's also why his mother is his age, like, when they meet in this world.
Yeah. So, we'll call it a pocket dimension for ease of use, I guess.
That works.
I know I've harped on this point specifically a lot since we've seen the movie, but, like, why did the aunt have to go to the other world and give birth? Like, why did she need to be there?
I thought she was, like, possessed, like, spirited away or something. Not the movie, but, like, the actual term, she was spirited away. Like, that's at least how I took it.
I kind of got Scarlet Hollow vibes when Cher Braincell would get, like, dragged toward the doctor's office.
Yeah, but
real quick, if anyone hasn't, go watch our Scarlet Hollow videos because they're fun.
Oh my god, it's so fun.
Yeah. When's the new I don't want to talk about, like, I'm waiting on that new chapter. Anyway, what were you saying?
The lens we're presented at the very end of how we're supposed to see the world through is that their great uncle or whatever is doing, like, this careful balancing act.
Yeah.
What about that balancing act required him to lure her in?
Or the birds.
To give birth to the baby there. But also, like, they grew up thinking that the tower and the Heron steals children. So, like, because he already knew Mahito was gonna be his successor, quote unquote.
Yeah.
And also, if he wanted to keep the world in balance, like, why did he do any of the things he did, like bringing in the birds?
Yeah, I really don't know. It's kind of one of those, like, again, it raises more questions than it can answer. And maybe as a series this could work because we would have more time to, like, delve into some of this stuff. I don't know. I don't know that he would have done that. I very much doubt he would have. But yeah, you kind of tend to run into that because, like, again, it feels like this world is much larger than presented. Obviously it is. We're not seeing all of it. We're just seeing snippets of it. But at the same time, the world's more interesting than this kid. I hate to say it. He's a fine enough protagonist for, you know,
he kinda sucks.
What he's doing. It's very, you know, basic hero's journey kind of character. But at the same time, I know
he's a traumatized child, but he sucks.
I can't say that the kid sucks. He's just a little quiet.
He's a little psychopathic.
How so?
He bashed his own face in with a rock to get a kid in trouble and expelled.
Yeah.
I thought that was so he wouldn't have to go to school again.
Actually, yeah, that was my reaction to it.
Yeah,
he did beat his head in with a rock.
Because
I assumed it was so he could go home and stay in bed.
Because I think
he's depressed.
He even said to his dad, like, don't do anything, it's fine. I don't think he wanted him to like go get the kid expelled or do whatever. I think he just wanted to stay home.
It doesn't matter.
You're
That's
a kid.
Psychopath.
No, yeah,
behavior.
he's a kid, so he's not going to look beyond certain consequences of certain actions. So I think that was more of an unintended result of
Didn't he, like,
his actions, but that's just me.
antagonize the other kids in hopes of getting beat up? And then when they didn't mess him up enough, that's when he smashed his face?
Maybe.
I mean,
That's
did
kind
we?
of what it looked like, yeah.
I was gonna say, I don't think we actually heard the conversation, but he
Yeah.
did start talking to them, and then the fight started.
Yeah, it just gave us, like,
Some of those
a view
kids
of
were...
the other boys not liking him when
Yeah.
he came into the classroom. No actual dialogue. Then, like, a side-scrolling view where, like, he ran up to them.
He walked up. He
As
didn't,
they
like,
were-
run up to them.
Were they leaving school for the day or something?
He was going home. They were
He
just
was
doing
going
something on the side of the
home.
road.
I think they were working,
Possibly.
because this is a farming village.
Yeah. I mean, it could... Look, just from my perspective, could have gone either way. Maybe he antagonized them and they attacked. Maybe they just didn't like him out the gate because he doesn't have to work like they do. Who knows? For sure. In any case, yeah, the rock thing is a little much, but at the same time, I could also see a kid his age doing certain things to be like, hey, this will get me out of it. I don't care about anything else, let's just do that. So
Is it too good to just, like, hang upside down over the edge of the bed and be like, I'm sick?
yeah, maybe.
I mean, the thing that got me the most with this movie, like, obviously there was a lot of unanswered questions about the lore, but the thing that got me the most and what I said about being rushed was like, okay, you set up that whole dynamic between Mahito and his aunt, who's named Natsuko. Like, Natsuko, she wants to be, you know, a new mother figure to Mahito, and understandably, Mahito's still, you know, held back. Like, he's never rude to her, but he's just like, you know, his mother died a year ago, and now his dad is, you know, moving on. So I can understand a kid that age, you know, being upset about that. So they don't have an antagonistic relationship, but they don't really, you know, have a loving relationship either throughout most of the movie. And then she goes missing, and then he tries to rescue her, and then they find out, you know, and then Natsuko, like, towards the middle of the movie, she's in, like, a chamber, a birthing chamber, whatever the fuck it was. Like,
Yeah, something like that.
He couldn't enter the room, and then out of nowhere, she just says she hates him, which I thought that was just out of left field. And at the very end of the movie, he's like, I love you, Mom. And it's like, where was this development? There was no development between you two. I do not buy that you're going to call her Mom. Even, okay, with the revelation that Lady Hime, the child, is her mother, his mother from the past. But, like, I do not buy their development at all to the point where, like, oh yeah, he's gonna call her Mom. It's like, no, I was like, really? Really? I did not buy that at all.
It was, like, kind of trying to imply even the fact that, like, he was going after her was supposed to be, like, the start of him, like, caring about her as a mother figure.
No, not at all. Did not get that vibe.
Because up until that point, he was very indifferent. Like, he had to be told to visit her.
Yeah.
And when he finds out she's gone missing, he goes out of his own way to look for her without being prompted. In fact, everyone was encouraging him not to go looking for her because of where he said she went.
I think
And
at
he's
that
like, no, I gotta do it.
I think at that point he's just being a rebellious little shit.
I mean, at that point, he was already interested in the tower, which is where they said that she was, like, taken or something. So it's kind of like, you know, these coincide, and it gets me to the tower, maybe. Possibly, I don't know. I have a question. Does anyone know about the book this was based on? Because I know this was based on
yes.
How You Live.
Well,
yeah.
yes and no.
The namesake is a book.
Okay.
The Japanese title's namesake is a book.
Okay, so this is not based on that book? At all?
No, not at all.
Not at all.
All right, never mind. Because I was
Yeah.
about to be like, does anyone know if this is like an accurate adaptation or not? So this is not an adaptation at all.
No,
Yeah.
the story behind it is that Miyazaki read this book when he was younger and he loved the book. And when they were initially talking about the movie, I thought it was going to be an adaptation of that coming of age story, but it turns out no, it was completely different. And so basically, the book "How Do You Live" is, you know, given to Mahito by his mother. So that's the only connection. And again, the Japanese title for this movie is "How Do You Live," which honestly serves as a better title than The Boy and the Heron. I think
yeah, but it's also kind of weird. I mean, it'd be like if you named a movie Catcher in the Rye, not because it's an adaptation of Catcher in the Rye, but because, oh yeah, I really like that book, so I just wanted to use that name.
So the title of the book that is in the movie, because there is a book that he finds, is How Do You Live? The thing about it is, we only see what are, I think, the diary entries that are interspersed throughout the narrative of the book.
Yeah.
And honestly, my whole thing is like, make that more of a part of the story if you're even going to make that the title.
Yeah, it just feels like a weird title decision.
Yeah. Another thing for me, and I think it's kind of going back to like how the entire movie just is kind of laid out, I feel like I would have maybe enjoyed it a little bit more had not everything really been like all tied up with his family, and it was more just an Alice in Wonderland story, and he was just going to this fantastical world, and then he was like, no, you know what, I really want to go home and I miss everyone. But I don't know, maybe that's just me, mostly because I was too confused because it was trying to do too much.
I just felt like the title worked better because the film is kind of like I guess one of the messages, how do you live your life, how do you define your legacy, how do you work towards something. And then The Boy and the Heron is just kind of like, okay, the main focus of the movie is going to be on Mahito and the Heron, which the Heron's a main side character, but it's not like, you know, the defining thing of the film either.
Well, yeah. I think it makes more sense for it to be the Japanese title because it's semi-autobiographical, and The Boy and the Heron makes way more sense as the English title because that's basically the two main characters of the movie. Like, we're not going to have the same connection to Miyazaki and, like, everything that happened in his life, like, here in America or in the West in general, as they are going to have over in Japan. But maybe that's just me.
I also wouldn't call the Heron a main character. It felt like he really could have been within, like, that very first half hour. But after that, he's very much, he shows up for, like, a couple minutes, usually for, like, a comedic bit.
Yeah. I mean, the main reason I was bringing up the book earlier is because I had some other thoughts of maybe some other ways this movie could have gone that I would have been a little more entertaining to me. But then I was like, but it's an adaptation. But it's not an adaptation. So I'm fine to say whatever the fuck I want at this point. I mean,
the themes of that book, and I'm reading the Wikipedia page,
okay,
deals with the struggles of growing up as a human being. So in a way, it kind of works, but also not really an adaptation.
Yeah, that's a very broad net to cast.
There's a lot of things that are
how do you live after your mom dies? How do you go on from that?
Yeah. I kind of, and this, I'm going to blame whoever cut the trailer because there was no Japanese trailer, as you guys said. Right. So the only trailers exist in English, and they're what I was kind of like basing what I thought the movie was going to be. I don't know if anyone else got this from the trailers. I thought this was going to be a horror movie. Or like at least
horror action, yeah.
Yes, kind of like a, not necessarily like a scary movie. It is somewhat still for children. I was thinking like a Secret of Nim kind of deal. And it felt that way. It felt that way early.
The first half hour, yeah.
Yeah, it felt that way like leading up to. But like the second the Heron turns out to just be some dude, I'm like, oh no. Oh, this is not the movie I was hoping for anymore.
I thought that was pretty creepy.
Yeah, the eyes, in the nose, in the mouth, I was like, what is going on? Is there an actual person in there? And then there is a person in there. And I'm like, is that just a Heron suit? What is wrong with you?
I think AYoN means up into the point where he gets shot.
Right.
Yeah, up into the point where he becomes like just a little guy in a Kigu suit. I was like, oh, this is cool. It's like, because when he's early, like, kind of like showing the guy underneath the suit a little bit, it's like, it's just that birds with teeth are fucking creepy. I think we can all agree on that.
Uncanny Valley as fuck.
Yeah. So, like, as they were going with that, I'm like, okay, there's a little bit of body horror here. There's a little bit of just like just creepy shit. The scene with the frogs all coming up all over him. Perfect stuff. And then the second they're like, okay, let's just pull the curtain back and be like, no, this isn't scary at all. And I'm like, you are missing out on a prime opportunity to make like some really good, like, dark children's movie that kids could grow up with and really like be like, ooh, this helped me like get over some shit or something. Because I feel like Secret of Nim is what this could have been.
Honestly, you mentioned that, and now I'm just kind of like, I would have really just enjoyed, like, a lot of Uncanny Valley animals and make it another movie about environmentalism.
Yeah,
I would have enjoyed that a lot more.
What if every one of those animals, every one of those birds was doing this same thing that the heron was doing at the early parts of the movie? Like, this would be a creepy as fuck movie, and I'd love it.
I mean, we also did have murder parrots, like, actual,
there were murder
parrots.
Yeah, but they were cute.
They were
parrots,
and I'm like,
I guess,
why?
I mean, somewhat cute, but they're also like, yeah, they literally capture and eat people. So,
but they're not menacing in any way, like visually. The heron was menacing early in the movie, and it really like added to like there was a tension in the atmosphere that really I was loving.
Yeah, it wasn't just like, I'm going to eat you. Like, his intentions were unknown.
Yeah.
He was going out of his way to antagonize and lure and play with Mahito.
Mm-hmm.
Whereas the parakeets were just straight up, haha, I have captured you, I'm gonna eat you now.
Yeah.
The heron was in it for, like, the long haul. He was messing with him, which is part of why he felt so menacing.
Yeah, and then we find out it was, for the lols.
Yeah, like, to pull that back and be like, oh, my master just really wanted me to get you here. I was never even really gonna hurt you.
Like, I could see that still working. I don't know, the way that, like, you could still keep it menacing. You could still, like, be like, I got you because my master wanted you. Like, I'm not gonna be the one to hurt you here. And, like, but he's still menacing the whole time. That could have been something. Because, like, they said in the trailer that he was going to be his guide to the underworld or whatever. And I was like, okay, you're going to be the traveling companion? You're creepy as fuck. This is going to be tense the whole time. And it wasn't.
Like, they did such a good job of setting him up to be a major antagonist, and they just didn't deliver on it. Because you also have the scene of, like, the ant coming out and, like, shooting him.
Yeah.
Like,
yeah, he's a threat.
I think that was also the frog scene, right?
It was. Yeah, he was about to get spirited away, and then the ant came out and saved him basically. Like what it kind of makes me think of is like the heron's like, you guys know Gollum and Smeagol from Lord of the Rings, but let's take away Gollum. If it was just Smeagol the whole time, yeah, we wouldn't be having as many problems getting to Mordor. But no, the threat came because the other half of him was also like looking to kill people. Like, you kind of took that away a little bit, and I'm a little sad. But I think I have to blame a lot of that on the marketing of the trailer, because it felt like that was what they were trying to make it look like. Because I'm really trying to think, like, that trailer didn't really show anything that wasn't in the first, like, third of the movie. It doesn't feel like. Maybe a couple shots of, like, later characters, but, like, any plot elements, it was all from that very beginning, which, again, the beginning of this movie is real good, and I really like it. It's when we actually get to, hey, things are not as threatening as they appeared at the beginning, that I'm like, okay, so where's my tension? Where's the tension I was looking for? And it's not there anymore. What?
Even his arrival in that first little world wasn't that bad. Like, the little graveyard scene, like, that was still very, like, unnerving.
Yeah, that was fun. I like that part.
It's everything after he gets on the boat and goes to her home.
Oh, and we get to meet the Wara Wara.
Yeah.
The little bubbles. That end up becoming all of the babies that get born.
Yeah, sure. No one wants to explain that either. That's fine.
Yeah.
That feels like a very big thing. It could be a plot all on its own. Oh, wait, that was Soul from Pixar, or was that Disney? Which one did that?
But like,
well, technically Disney and Pixar.
Okay, whatever.
Nowadays.
The great uncle made it seem like it would have been such a big deal if the world collapsed and there would be serious consequences, and then we get shown a snippet of time later and everything's fine.
Yeah. So was he lying? Did he just not know what's going on? What's up? We're not told.
Or the fact that, apparently the whole structure, the whole dynamic of this universe that Mahito gets transported in, he has to shape it every single day by building blocks, by a children's set of building blocks. It's like, okay.
I'm fine with that as a metaphor for a larger thing. It's just that larger thing is not explained.
Yeah, because, like, even the building blocks, where, like, he was trying to con Mahito at the end by using, like, blocks made out of gravestones. Like, what was that?
I think they were all made out of gravestones, but he's like, these ones don't have malice, okay? This is the first time we're bringing up that malice is a thing that can infect something. Why is that a thing? Do the birds have malice? Is that why they're assholes? What's going on? Where?
Yeah, like, what infected the world with the malice?
Also, why did you bring these birds in if they can't eat anything? You're a bad bird keeper, is the main thing that I got from Great Uncle Mark Hamill. You're a bad pet owner, is what you are.
He's also just a bad uncle. I don't understand why Himi was like, oh, I love you.
Okay.
He was just an all-around bad kind of guy.
Can I throw an idea out there to you? Why that might have been? Because we don't know anything about the mom, really. Outside of what we see of her as a little kid. What if she's just a pyro?
I mean, and
so he gave her firepower.
He gave her fire powers. I love you. I genuinely. Oh my god! What if she started the fire?
Honestly, that's kind of what I thought. I'm like, she's a fire starter. Is this her fault?
Oh man, that recontextualizes a couple things, and that's pretty bad.
Yeah. I don't know.
She already knew that's how she was gonna die.
Yeah.
So she very well may have just done it herself.
Oh, that's fucking dark.
In which case, if she did, yeah. Because she didn't just take herself out.
Like, I could get behind that kind of dark, but we're kind of the ones putting that dark into this, and that's not presented there.
No,
at least.
I'm wondering if maybe the fire itself maybe manifested sort of because that's how she's gonna die.
So it was destiny fire.
I think so.
Huh.
I kind of saw it in that sort of context. I'm like, so she died in a fire, which, I'm gonna be honest, it's very easy to tell that she was the mom from the very moment she showed up.
Yeah.
And she controls fire, but she has no control over fire outside of this world. Right. So it's ironic that that is the thing that kills her. So, like, she's been given control over fire because it's the thing that can basically... It will be the thing that kills her. But in the end, she ultimately does die of it because she's no longer in the other world.
So, we know how Mahito's gonna die because it's the thing that manifests the most with him in that world. Being boring.
No.
I feel like I'm being, like, a little bit mean. It's starting to get, like... I don't know.
I just had a thought. Were we ever told what specifically she did as, like, a nurse?
Probably just general, I mean, if they say nurse, you just do what the nurses do, which I guess just go around
I'm wondering
patients.
if she was very specifically baby delivery.
Maybe.
Yeah.
Because her whole thing was protecting the unborn souls and letting them get to the point of being born.
Could be. Be a nice way of tying some stuff together.
And she was also her sister's main protector while she was there in the world.
Right. That makes sense. I have a thought. I kind of mentioned to you guys, but I'll say it here. And this is not... Well, it's a little bit about theme and stuff, but it's primarily just about, like, how I kind of think the whole movies are structured and play out pacing-wise and everything else. I feel like this movie... If I was going to compare it to any other movie, it'd be Up. Because beyond just being about, life and change and death and accepting certain things, the first, like, section of Up is some of the best animation I've ever seen and is very, very good. And then the rest of the movie, I kind of forget because it's actually not that good. And
I have a bunch of disagreements for you, but
Let me finish.
I'll let you finish.
Let me finish. Yeah. And this one also, the beginning is really, really good. And then I got really bored throughout the rest of the film. And there's also plots about going to other places. There's plots about weird birds. There's plots about talking animals who are sometimes friendly and sometimes antagonistic. And there's also an old man at the heart of it all who is causing a lot of problems, and then his entire world falls out of the sky before we go home.
Okay, I understand what you're coming from, but I feel like I have to respectfully disagree with pretty much everything that you said. I do think though that the first 10 minutes of Up, as cliche as it is the best part of the film.
Yeah,
but I still thought the rest of the film was really good, and I also thought all those elements were properly explained, properly dealt with, and had satisfying payoffs. But that's just me.
That's fair enough.
I don't think Al's putting Up's quality into question. It's more, it had a lot of overlap.
So
in just coincidences.
Yeah.
So
I'm not saying that any of that was intentional either. I'm just saying funny thing.
Can I just, jumping off of that, would you then say that this is the poor man's Up?
I don't know that I would, because clearly a lot of money was put into this.
Mm-hmm.
But I don't know.
I'd say it's the senile old man's Up.
So Up.
Because Miyazaki's pushing 80.
He's 82.
Yeah. I don't know. I just found it interesting that your best parts are right at the beginning, and then it kind of just goes downhill. Not necessarily to a bad place, but like you guys said, we can all agree that the best parts of both those movies are the very beginning. And
honestly, I was kind of bored at the beginning of the movie too. I honestly thought my favorite section of the film was the part where they first enter the new world and the bubble things and the interactions between Mahito and the Heron and the younger Kiriko. I thought that was my favorite part of the film. Because the beginning of the film I thought was kind of boring at sometimes.
You cannot call that hospital fire boring.
Okay, no, not that part.
That's what I'm talking about. That's the section of Up where we're with the wife.
I think if we were to go back and rewatch the beginning with the knowledge that there is no actual payoff to the tension that it's trying to build in the atmosphere, it would actually be pretty boring. And I know, Envy, you don't really like horror movies, so that atmosphere building probably isn't your thing to begin with.
I mean, no, I mean, I didn't mind it. I just didn't think it was as exciting as Al said. But again, to each its own.
Well, yeah, because I don't think that's your cup of tea. I think people who do enjoy horror movies genuinely it was building excitement because, you have this really slow burn that's slightly edging up the tension and the fear factor of what's going to happen. And then that just gets fucking obliterated into a million pieces. So I can see what you're saying, Envy, because I think if we were to go back and watch it now that we know there's no payoff to what they were building up to in the beginning, it's not going to be as entertaining.
But the Up as a short, yeah, it still holds up.
Yeah, honestly, you ended the movie with, Mahito and Kiriko, being eaten by the tower, and the Heron won in the end. Mint.
I mean, I don't necessarily know that that's how it needed to end, but I guess I just wanted more of an antagonistic relationship there with the Heron. Or at least let it ride a little bit longer with that, I can't trust this bird kind of thing. So we've discussed a little bit, not in a ton of detail, but a little bit about how this is more or less being called, the semi-autobiographical movie for Miyazaki. How do we feel about all that? Because we've kind of been talking a little bit more about how, world building and all that other sort of stuff doesn't entirely make sense. How do we feel about that for how he's telling, I guess, his story through this?
He should take less drugs.
Well, the way I see it is that Miyazaki, you cannot deny that, he's a legend. Obviously, he's not the only legendary person from Studio Ghibli. You got to talk about, the other directors and producers, and then the other animators. But obviously, as a figurehead of, Studio Ghibli for many years, you can't deny his legacy. But at the same time, even if you take his, how shitty of a person he is in his personal life, especially to his son, it's kind of dependent on how well you identify with not just him, but as a creative artist in general. Because I feel like if you're a creative, if you're like a professional creative artist, whether it be an artist or a singer or musician or name your art, you might feel something different compared to me, who I'm not an artist. Yeah, I write as a living as a newspaper reporter, but I don't really consider that art. So I don't necessarily have a creative outlet to, identify as, someone who might struggle with legacy or moving on or stuff like that. So I guess it's to each person's interpretation.
I mean, I can see it being an allegory for his works. So, I think with how fractured some of the plot lines felt, and as he bounced from one place to another, and it's not like a different world, it's all still the same world, but each different section of the world he's in kind of has their own issues that he has to resolve and acknowledge and change something within himself to overcome. And again, they all had very different kind of vibes. I feel like that can very clearly represent his career. And the old man at the end being him, and he's trying to find a successor, but it's never going to happen. I think he's given up at this point. I think that would be a very poignant metaphor for his life. But I don't know. It just isn't done well. We're missing something that he was trying to put down.
As I was going through it, so I guess Himi's character, I think, is kind of more based on his mother, who died very tragically, I think, when he was young. And how she was outspoken and basically sort of an emotional center in his life, and why she's very similar to a lot of his female characters in his movies. So Himi's a little bit like that. But I'm reading here, the narrative is inspired by Miyazaki's Mahito's professional relationship with Isao Takahata, who is granduncle, and Suzuki, who is the Heron. But upon Takahata's death, revisions were made to the film, and instead of it focusing on the granduncle, he became a lesser part of the movie, and it began to focus on more of Mahito and the Heron. So I feel like the granduncle would have been a much bigger part in the movie if he might have still been around. But and I feel like had the granduncle had more of a presence, I feel like maybe the plot would have been a little bit more cohesive, to be honest.
I think you're
his
right.
Actual uncle died?
No. Basically Isao Takahata, I believe, was more like his mentor.
Well, they worked
when he was doing animation and film, because a lot of the titles that or at least some of the titles that he worked on, Miyazaki, Isao also worked on them as well.
Yeah, he co-founded Studio Ghibli with him, and we've watched some of his work, The Tales of Princess Kaguya. That was his direction. So, yeah.
Yeah, so there is that, and then as I'm skimming, narrative imparts various moral lessons, but centers on an impassioned plea from an aging master, granduncle, to his progeny, emphasizing the urgency of their tasks as time passes quickly. So it's, I guess, sort of implying that, as life goes on and you have all these different things happen to you, time is always of the essence, more or less. Which I guess by the end of the film, we do kind of get that message a little bit, but it's kind of weak.
Yeah, Mahito doesn't become the successor, though. He turns away from it.
I think because that's just more Miyazaki wanting to do his own thing. Because I feel like that would have been, instead of like necessarily continuing to do what Granduncle or his mentor was doing, he goes off still in his own direction. But
I feel like the Granduncle, like, just in general as a character, like, again, is a very good metaphor for just Miyazaki in general. Because, like, he is the creator of this entire world, and he's struggling to find balance in it every single day. And, like, he wanted to only do it with the purest of intentions, but, like, malice somehow found its way into it, and he had to work with that. Like, he just couldn't stop. He had to keep going. AKA, please just fucking stay in retirement, Miyazaki.
It's really hard for old people to retire anymore.
Yeah, I could see both of those being decent interpretations of this. I do think maybe narrative and structurally it probably would have helped to have that uncle there a little bit more, or have him be more of a character, because it could have, I don't know, added more to the plot and an actual, because it part of the issue does feel like we've mentioned the word meandering a couple of times. The plot's issue is that it doesn't feel like it's fully has a direction all the time that it needs to be going in. And I think kind of yeah, would have helped if you had more of a, hey, this is the master that the Heron was trying to get you for anyway. We don't know jack shit about him in this version of the movie. Maybe the version that included him more prominently could have helped a lot.
I do also, like, to an extent, like, Miyazaki films are supposed to be targeted at, like, a younger demographic, but I feel like, you know, he has kind of stepped into just fulfilling his own passion projects, so, like, the audience is maybe more adult-aimed in some of his later works. Like, especially, like, The Wind Rises and stuff.
Yeah.
Like, honestly, if you've had as much success as he has in his career, and you've made the money you've made, and you've made the works that you've made, and at this point you're just like, I'm just making these for me at this point, you know what? More power to you if you can do that. Very few people can. And,
like, I feel like this one was also supposed to be aimed at a bit of an older demographic, because I don't think, like, yes, I think children could enjoy this, but I don't think they're really gonna get anything out of it.
I would not show this to a little kid.
Yeah. Well, not that I wouldn't show this to a little kid. I would, if I were a child, I would not enjoy this film.
Yeah, I think it makes it all the more insulting how easily broadcasted it is. Like, every single twist there is in this movie. Oh, he meets the mom. Oh, the master of the tower is the granduncle. Oh, the weird young woman who has dolls of all the old people is actually a younger Kiriko. Like, I don't know. Like, they broadcasted every move so far ahead. Like, it felt like kind of an insult to our own intelligence that they kind of, like, thought we wouldn't actually see it coming.
I don't know. To be fair, looking back at some of the Disney films I've seen growing up, or DreamWorks films, you can call the twist a mile away too. I think but it's again, just a part of,
like, those are aimed at children, and I feel like this was not a movie that was targeting a young demographic. I feel like it was for older people, especially when you've left, like, the themes and, you know, all that kind of up in the air and up to interpretation. To make just those parts so childishly easy to see coming was weird.
Yeah, I with books and with movies, I don't really like it when they talk down to the audience on a lot of things. And this is definitely a case of that. And I don't know if it's just Miyazaki just didn't think that we would see it coming, or it's just like a thing in Japan where, like, a lot, I'm gonna be honest, like, and maybe this isn't really a thing, but a lot of people just kind of go along with what's happening and they don't really think about it, and so the twists are like, oh! But, I don't know. I'm just kind of like, I consume too much media to not call when something is going to happen.
Yeah, I think we're all kind of there. We all have a bit of that problem. I'm the same way with, like, most of the movies that I watch, and, like, I'll watch them with people who don't watch a lot of them, and they're like, oh, that was interesting. I'm like, no, this scene, all show these 3 elements that blah, 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 because we're all kind of tuned to look for them at this point.
Yeah, but,
so...
it wasn't even subtle. They bring up, oh, the granduncle mysteriously disappeared after he had the tower built. Oh, Hime disappeared for an entire year when she was a kid and came back just fine. Like, Kiriko had all of the dolls of her friends, and she was wearing the same patterned yukata.
I'll say at least for her, it was revealed pretty quickly, I feel like, that she was that person. So it's not like it was a, oh, wow, we're going to wait till the end and, oh my god. No, it wasn't an oh my god. We already knew. Because they kind of said it very quickly.
Well, they also all... Well, I mean,
she
you
didn't
can
tell him her name until, like, the very end.
I thought he said, yeah, that's her, right?
I think so.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure he figured it out early. And then if he's figured it out, then the audience has figured it out because he basically says it. So, I don't know. I feel like it's a mix of both.
I don't think they ever said it until she gave him her doll and she's like, make sure you get it back safely.
Yeah, but he wasn't surprised by that. That or he just doesn't show surprise very well.
Yes.
I was going to say, he's kind of blank-faced most of the time.
Is his lack of reaction making me think that he's more in tune with what's going on than what he actually is?
Yes.
Well, yeah, because he knew Hime was his mom.
Yeah, no, I know he knows the thing with the mom and all that.
Like, they don't bring any of it up or confirm it to us until, again, they're about to part ways. But, like, it implies he knew almost the entire time when it is confirmed to us. Actually, he wasn't even the one that confirmed it. I think she was.
Yeah, no,
she
it
said,
was
I'm
her.
your mom.
Yeah.
And then he was like, you're my mom? I feel like he had some form of reaction to finding out that she was his mother.
You're my mom? That makes all the times I was looking at your ass really awkward now.
You're my mom? Oh, hey, I can hug you
Oh,
and
God,
actually
now it's
say
Back to the
goodbye,
Future.
and it's closure.
A little bit of a Back to the Future moment.
Now I'm reminded of Murakami novels. Please don't. No.
I don't know what that is, but the way you're saying it makes me think that I shouldn't.
You're probably better off not.
Sounds good.
Like that one also wasn't supposed to be a twist because every time he was like, oh, I'm looking for whatever the aunt's name was, she was like, oh, that's my sister.
Yeah, that's why I thought, like, this was never gonna be a reveal.
Yeah, no, before we even met Hime, like, officially met her, just Kiriko going, oh, that's Lady Hime, and she's shooting fire off the boat. You're like, that's his mom.
Yep.
Yeah, but you're saying they never revealed that was going to be the mom until the very end, but, like, yeah, as soon as she says the sister thing, which is, like, probably one of the early conversations when he actually talks to her, it's like, yeah, this is not really, like, a mystery. Us calling it the second we see them, I would say is more of just, yeah, we're used to these narratives, we're used to characters and how they're introduced and what they'll usually end up becoming kind of thing. I'd say that's more of an experience thing as opposed to maybe a lack of ability to tell your story like that.
It's very hand-holdy. I'm going to lead you to the point.
Yeah, well, he doesn't know where he's going, so he is kind of have his hand held the entire movie anyway, so... I feel like a lot of older narratives are like that. Like, I need a guide for this entire thing because I don't know where I'm going, but I'm the chosen one, so I have to go. I don't really have a way to talk about this. I'm just kind of, it is making me think about, like, other films that were meant to be semi-autobiographical by filmmakers. If there's a really good one, and this is just me making recommendations, if anyone knows anything about Bob Fosse, there's a movie from 1979 called All That Jazz, which he directed and is more or less a biography of his later life when he was doing a lot of stuff. And it's also deals with ideas of loss and death and change and things like that. And, you know, what are you leaving behind? Things like that. Honestly, amazing film. So I kind of recommend that.
there was a film that came out last year. I haven't seen it, but I think it was called The Fabelmans. That was like a somewhat semi-autobiographical story of Steven Spielberg, which was directed by Steven Spielberg.
Well, yeah, he knows his life, and then like, yeah, it's the same thing. I have yet to watch that one. I know I need to. Apparently, there's like some really good performances in that one as well. I feel like there's been a couple directors who've been doing some of the stuff like that. I don't know that it was ever confirmed, but I know Film Theory had a thing about how Oppenheimer was actually about Christopher Nolan and his career. Which, if the theory is correct, man, Christopher Nolan's got an ego. But, you know.
I mean, yeah. I would be surprised if he didn't.
I don't know.
It's the surprising twist of this whole episode.
What?
Christopher Nolan has an ego.
Well, I mean, like, his movies have always had something to do with, like, the filmmaking process and that. I mean, if you look at anything like Inception or some of the other things like that. But to be fair, any heist movie you can make as an allegory for filmmaking. But yeah, like, I think the theory went something along the lines of, when he made The Dark Knight, it was the most, like, well-received and, like, most profitable superhero movie. And as a result of that, it caused the proliferation of superhero movies, destroying the cinematic landscape, essentially. And it's in the same way that Oppenheimer helped invent the nuclear bomb, and that proliferated nuclear bombs, and it caused problems. Again, if that is the case, that's some ego right there, but, you know.
It's kind of a stretch.
I mean, I was going to say, the proliferation of superhero films was the MCU, specifically the Avengers, succeeding in 2012. So...
but when did it start? 2008, the year that The Dark Knight came out.
I mean, we're going Patreon topic it now, but like you can honestly say, you know, the modern superhero film started with X-Men in 2000 and the first Sam Raimi Spider-Man film in 22.
I understand what you're saying there. I understand what you're saying there, but you gotta also realize that after about 2006 leading into 2007, superhero movies were dead. They were all failing. There was Spider-Man 3, there was X-Men 3, and a bunch of other, like, little, like, you know, the Ghost Riders, Daredevils, all that. People were out at that point. Yeah, sure, Batman Begins was okay, but even that didn't make gangbusters. Dark Knight blew everybody out of the water. Iron Man happened that same year, and they were like, hey, maybe we could do something, we'll set up the little end sequence, but, like, over those subsequent years, they were like, okay, this could work. And, I mean, if nothing else... Christopher Nolan definitely did destroy any chance of a shared universe for DC movies, because after Green Lantern failed, they were like, everything has to be a Christopher Nolan movie, and that's where a lot of the problems for the DCEU started. But this is, like you said, Patreon. This could be a much larger discussion for an entirely separate thing, if you guys wanted to do that at some point.
Okay. One last question about Nolan.
Sure.
Are him and Cillian Murphy, like, the Tim Burton, like, Helena Bonham Carter equivalent?
Yeah.
Or, like...
I don't know, necessarily. He's got a lot of characters that or a lot of actors that he's really enjoyed working with over the years, simply because he likes working with them.
Okay.
There was Cillian Murphy. A lot of his movies also include Michael Caine. Tom Hardy's been in a couple of them. There's also a few other people who are, like, not necessarily always, like, the people, like, up front in a lot of the cast, but a lot of smaller bits. Like, he had his uncle, actually, was in a bunch of his movies. Because, yeah, he just liked working with him.
I will say, though, with Cillian Murphy, they did say in the making of Oppenheimer that he wanted to make Cillian Murphy a lead in his movie, going as far back as Batman Begins, because he did audition for Batman, but obviously, you know, it went to Christian Bale, and he was Scarecrow in the movie. So he's had him in his radar for years, but finally, he pretty much said, listen, if you want to be Oppenheimer, the role's yours. So, sure enough.
As far as Batman goes, I think the more interesting alternate history was what the studio originally wanted Batman to be, and that was Heath Ledger. That would have been an interesting twist, because if anyone's watched American Psycho, Christian Bale can play the Joker. There is an alternate universe where those roles are switched in The Dark Knight, and it's probably pretty entertaining as well.
Yeah, they're both just such great actors. Like, that still would have worked.
Yeah. Or at the very least, had Ledger survived, maybe we would have had a Saturday Night Live sketch where they switched roles. Could have been fun. But, I don't know.
wouldn't have been funny, though. It would have been like, this is legitimately good.
Speaking of good, we didn't talk about it much, but Robert Pattinson, who's a Batman now, was the Heron here, and he did a fantastic job.
Yep.
Probably the best of anyone in the cast, honestly.
Honestly, I liked his voice acting so much more than I've ever liked his actual acting.
Hey, man. There you go.
I mean, I think this is just he finally is like, yes, I get to be a chaos gremlin. Haha.
He's been waiting for this moment.
He is a chaos gremlin in a lot of interviews.
To be fair, I haven't really seen many of Pattinson's works. I mean, he disowns Twilight, but I've seen him in The Batman, and that's pretty much it. I need to see The Lighthouse. I heard that was a really good movie, but I haven't really seen him in anything else.
I don't know that The Lighthouse is up your alley, but he does put in a very good performance in it.
Yeah, because isn't it like kind of a thriller-ish sort of movie?
Yeah, like a
kind of hard to
thriller.
say.
Well, it's darker. It's definitely a darker film.
It's much more of a drama with thriller elements.
Oh, I forgot he was Cedric Diggory, and in Harry Potter. My boy! That's my boy!
Yeah, but is that a role, the way that they did it?
No.
He had 2 lines, it feels like. So I wouldn't even count that. No, yeah. He's fun in interviews, though. Go check out any of those. Apparently huge Final Fantasy fan as well.
Yes, he is. He was very sad when Aerith died.
Well, who wouldn't be? Do we have anything else to talk about, say?
Who was it? Florence Pugh who did Kiriko?
Yes. Yeah.
Yeah. She also fucking nailed it because she did both, right?
Yeah.
Yes.
But to be fair, Florence Pugh is
did
one of
the
those people
whole-
who, usually fucking nails it as well. I don't think I've seen a bad performance out of her either.
Yeah, but she legitimately sounded like an old woman.
Yeah.
If you would not have told me that was Florence Pugh, and I know you wouldn't fuck around about that at least. I wouldn't have believed anyone else.
Yeah. Okay, so we good on from this point on, no more spoilers?
Yep.
Yes.
Cool. All right. Welcome
One
back,
last
everybody.
one
God
one
damn
last
it.
Fuck you. The moment where the dad goes, Mahito's a bird! Favorite moment of the
That
movie.
was so great.
Okay, that is
So
pretty
funny.
good. All right, now, no more spoilers from this point on. Welcome back, everybody who decided to skip all the spoil talk so you can get the final verdict at this point. I'm overall here, I think there's some good stuff. There's a lot that I wasn't interested in. There's... I don't know. I'm going to say somewhat I'm giving benefit of the doubt here, but I'm going to give it just an overall meh. I'm glad I watched it, but I don't know that I would again.
I would just give this very much a meh. Mostly just, this was a movie that I saw, and honestly, granted, I didn't really have, expectations going into it, but, deeply underwhelming, but, not a terrible film.
Yeah, I mean, as much as I was disappointed, and as much as I was, this is my second least favorite Ghibli film, I still gotta acknowledge the good performances, the good, animation, and there was good directions of certain scenes. I will say there is still some good, I guess, cinematography of the animation and stuff like that. So there are good things technically about the film. It's like a perfect technical film. It's just story and characters that I kind of just thought blew it for me in a lot of ways. So yeah, it's a meh.
Yeah, the goods are good, the bads are weird and confusing. I think they even out to a meh. Worth a watch, but maybe only one watch.
I'm also a meh. If you want to see all of the Ghibli films or all of Hayao's films, yeah, give it a watch. But it's very take it or leave it. If you don't watch it, you're not really missing out on anything mind-blowing. The cast is great. The animation's beautiful. The soundtrack is, so good. I just hope that Miyazaki maybe has, one more movie left in him, because, if this was to be his final film, I feel like that would be a very disappointing one to end on.
Well, We're gonna definitely take a look at a couple other things this month to see what... I don't know that we're necessarily gonna be comparing anything to anything else moving forward, but yeah, we can talk about the rest of the month. We might as well just say what the rest of the month's gonna be, because we can say there's a couple that we're not gonna watch because we've already watched them, like Spirited Away, Mononoke, a few others like that. So, well, next week it's gonna be Castle in the Sky. So we're gonna be checking out that one, giving our thoughts on that. Then Kiki's Delivery Service, Howl's Moving Castle, which is interesting because Howl was also in this movie. And after that, it'll be February, and we'll be going on to a romance type stuff. So that'll we're gonna try to have. I feel like we've been trying last year a little bit, but we're gonna make a bigger point of like having each month have like some sort of theme that all the shows are gonna be sort of going around. So I'm looking forward to seeing how that all goes and how that happens. Next week, Castle in the Sky. We'll see you guys then. Bye-bye, everybody.
Bye!
Hey, thanks for watching, and if you haven't already, be sure to subscribe and ring the bell icon for notifications. If you enjoyed this video, give us a like, and if you haven't already, check out some of our previous episodes, our daily gaming videos, or our parody series Madoka Magically Abridged. See you next time!